Hello, my fellow Star Warriors. Advitya and I, Aradhya Akshat, are watching Season 3, Episode 5 of The Mandalorian, Chapter 21. Well, the one liner description of this on Disney Plus Hotstar says the people of Navarro need protection from rampant pirate attacks. Like I need protection from Advitya's rampant fart attacks. Just kidding. All right. And watching along with us, of course, as always, are Dr. Darth Vader and Master Blaster Yoda. Master Blaster, of course, is the nickname for who? Sachin Tendulkar. Everybody who's from the Indian subcontinent or who follows cricket will know him as the god of cricket. And talking about Disney Plus Hotstar's new user interface, which is about a month old now, the glitches are still not ironed out completely. And one of the features which they've copied blatantly from Netflix is that the preview of a show will start playing when you, not even when you have selected the thumbnail, but you're just scrolling through. And that just sucks. It kind of irks me, irritates me. Doesn't it? Yes, it does. Because I don't want to see the preview of a show, especially at night when Advitya is sleeping and suddenly the volume of the TV will, disturb her. So I don't want sudden attacks, sneak attacks on my viewing experience. I don't know if Disney Plus Hotstar ever pays attention to any user feedback. I wrote a blog about it on StackMe and I tweeted at them, but they have very poor, issue resolution. In fact, for most of the latter half or the latter stages of the Indian Super League in football, Indian football, the games were not playing on Disney Plus Hotstar on the Samsung TV, and I don't know. It took about a week or so for that to resolve, but resolve it did eventually. So I guess what can you do? You gotta keep moving ahead of your disappointments and looking forward to a bright future. 6Rsm, and that's it. Let's get the show on the road. And Advitya is falling asleep, so that is a great sign that the show is going to be exciting because I'll keep waking her up with my exclamations, won't I? Don't worry. Alright, as she goes to sleep, we get this show started. Alright, so now we know the name of the episode is The Pirate, and it's like I said, circling back to the first episode of this season and the first episode of The Mandalorian itself, because the planet we are on is Navarro, where all his adventures began, for us at least, where his story began being shown to us. And one thing that I wanted to say was that the politics of space fantasy is pretty complicated, and I call it space fantasy, not science fiction, because Star Wars, like it was said by young Sheldon, is not really science fiction in its strictest sense. It takes the science and technology as granted. It takes it for granted in the stories and does not explain or even get into the nitty-gritties or even into the basics of what drives the faster than light travel or any of the other fictional science fiction things that go on in this space opera. So with that, let the opera go on and let's see what this episode brings. Alright then, so while Advitya drinks her lunch, and don't worry, it's not Soylent Green. In case you don't know that reference, Soylent Green was a kind of old-timey science fiction movie, and yes, that is science fiction, in which they show a world which is kind of utopian, but underneath the surface, it's dystopian, and people are processed into food. So with that short and shocking summary of that science fiction, I will move on to saying that in The Mandalorian, he is always seen as sort of a savior character, and that is kind of what makes him very relatable. It's what makes him not an anti-hero, but actually a proper bona fide hero, because he saves Grogu from the clutches of Moff Gideon right from the first episode itself. He forms a connection, and it brings me back to that scene in which he is reaching out to touch the finger of Grogu, and that kind of harkens back to the touch of God, in which God is reaching out to Adam with an outstretched hand and their fingers are just about to meet. I think painted by Michelangelo on the Sistine Chapel's ceiling. So, drawing from that ancient art and bringing some of the mythological aspects into storytelling, this is what drives imagination forward. This is what gives wings to our future generations thinking about how science can be used to do something that was considered impossible just not even a century, but like, a few decades ago. So we in the current stage of the world are lucky to have witnessed the rise of technology in such a way that you and I can connect via electromagnetic waves literally without lifting a finger even. So I guess this is the kind of thing that we have to push forward and which we have to encourage in our kids and in future generations, because science fiction leads to good imagination, and that leads to the creation of good things in general. Okay, so with that tract on the future of science fiction and imagination and why they are so closely tied together, I will move on and watch the rest of this episode. And you're welcome to watch along with me and share your reactions if you have seen it in the comments. If you haven't seen it, I recommend The Mandalorian to everybody who likes space fiction, space fantasy, as I said, young Sheldon says, or I would say a space opera. But The Mandalorian is not really into the opera style. It's full of action, it's full of twists and turns that you barely see coming, as I have rapped in one of my rhymes. So check out my raps and rhymes as well. And as you can see, I am whimsical. So let's vibe in an awesome Axe tribe and move on with the rest of this episode. So as I was saying, it's action packed and after a fiery flighting and ground fighting sequence, the planet, or rather the town of Navarro, I will say, has been liberated from the pirates' tyranny, and Mando, Bo-Katan Kryze, or as I used to call her, Bo-Katan Kryze, because I like that style more, and the rest of the Mandalorian covert have managed to free the town, and the reward for them is going to be a tract of land next to the hot springs, like Carl Weathers' character Grief Karga promised Mando. So I guess at the end of this episode, we will see the Mandalorians beginning to rebuild their civilization, not as much as it was on Mandalore originally, but starting to live out in the open rather than hiding from the Empire and from their enemies or whoever. So this is the way, and let's see where the way takes them. Alright, I guess there are 3 or 4 more chapters to come before this season closes, and I hope that we will see another showdown with Moff Gideon, played by the one and only Giancarlo Esposito, the big bad of Breaking Bad. And if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, check out that series. I mean, it's real drama, it's real crime, it's real absolute anti-hero stuff done by, once again, the one and only Bryan Cranston, who I love in Malcolm in the Middle. So I have been kind of just picking up random episodes and watching them during the nights with Gergu, and it almost never fails to impress. So Bryan Cranston and Jane Krasimirik, I'm not sure what her surname is, Lois, basically, the actor who plays Lois, the actress, and Frankie Muniz and the kids are also great. So it's a nice watch always. Young Sheldon, I've been catching up on Young Sheldon. So like I was mentioning, he calls Star Wars science fantasy rather than science fiction because of the non-reliance on technology, or rather the unexplained use of technology. right? Okay, so I guess that the rest of this episode, which is about 11 minutes remaining, is going to be about the Mandalorian settling in and the developments on Coruscant, the capital world of the galaxy in which Star Wars is set. You know, it begins, the entire saga begins with that yellow on black scroll a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So, this is that galaxy far, far away, and I don't know how it's a long time ago, but maybe we as humans are not advanced enough yet. But kidding apart, like I was saying, science fiction fires up the imagination of the young generation, and that is what we should aim for. Okay, so coming up next, probably the last thoughts about this chapter and the Mandalorian in general. I'm inviting you once again to share your thoughts in the comments and smash that sub button for Awesome Max Fun. Let's see if there is anything more significant coming up in the remaining 10 minutes, and see you at the wrap up. Okay, so as the episode winds down and the credits that are always these sort of hand painted storyboards of the episode's story arc, they roll through. There are two main points that we have to look forward to in the future episodes of The Mandalorian, and which we can discuss. First is how Bo-Katan is going to be reuniting the tribes of Mandalore in their overall overarching plan to retake Mandalore and make Mandalore great again. And the second thing is that there is a bit of a twist at the end in which the New Republic lieutenant finds a ship which was transporting Moff Gideon, the big bad that I was mentioning, and it seems that there is a Beskar fragment in that ship, which means that Mandalorians might have had a role to play in Moff Gideon's extraction before trial. Of course, that is going to turn out to be a red herring. It will probably point to somebody who is in tandem with Beskar, and who knows, it might be Boba Fett, but I doubt after watching the book of Boba Fett if he's going to get involved in these kind of things. But all that remains to be seen in the upcoming episodes. Finally, the Bad Batch has wrapped up its season, and what a great finale that was, but that is for another video. The entire season of the Bad Batch progressed through a nice story arc, and it's going to take a separate video to recap that and review that. So while I do that, thank you so much once again for watching, and might I remind you to smash that sub button for Awesome Max Fun. I am Akshat, and may the force be with you. This is the way.